Kaelithra stood at the centre of the courtyard, shadowy tendrils swirling around her, declaring herself the Queen of Nythoria. The courtyard was still, bathed in a glowing aftermath of the explosion, her powers fully unleashed. Zariel knelt, swearing his loyalty once again to her, and those who had gathered looked on, frozen in awe and uncertainty. As the last tremor of magic settled, a portal opened with a bright crackle behind her. Gunnar, Derren and Alpha stepped out, their exhaustion from the recent battle visible, but the sight that greeted them was entirely unexpected. Derren blinked, taking in the aftermath of the destruction, before muttering, "What the hell happened here? Is this how you welcome us back?" Gunnar, ever the seasoned warrior, assessed the situation quickly. His eyes landed on Karina, or at least the woman he knew as Karina, and immediately sensed the monumental shift in her power. "Karina?" he asked, cautiously stepping forward. This was no longer just the assassin he once knew. She turned to them, her darkened gaze smouldering with fury, her voice no longer familiar but something more regal, cold, and controlled. "He will pay," she seethed, her voice dripping with venom. "The traitor will pay with his life." Derren, sensing this wasn't the right time for sarcasm, stayed silent as Gunnar stepped closer. The shadows curling around Karina flickered as if sensing her turmoil. Gunnar, always quick to grasp what needed to be said, locked his eyes on her. "You need to slow down," he said calmly. "If the trader's hiding under the protection of the Shadow Realm bar's truce, there's a lot more at stake than just him." Karina's fury flared, but Gunnar's steady voice kept her grounded. The darkness surrounding her subsided slightly, but the tension didn't leave her face. "You don't know what he's done," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of her rage and sorrow. "He destroyed my world. He sold me to the Demon King." Gunnar's eyes narrowed in disbelief. This was far beyond anything he'd expected. But for now, the urgency of the moment demanded patience. "We'll bring him to justice," he promised, but his voice carried a warning. "But we do this right." For the first time since they'd returned, Derren felt the weight of what was coming. Gunnar's calm resolve, Karina's burning need for revenge. Something was coming, and it was far bigger than any of them had anticipated. Gunnar extended his hand toward Karina, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. "It appears we have a lot to talk about," he said, his voice calm, though his mind was already working to piece together what little he understood of the situation. Karina hesitated for a moment, the dark tendrils still twisting around her as if they were a part of her now. Slowly, she grasped his hand. The moment her fingers touched his, the shadows retreated slightly, as though his presence alone could temper the storm inside her. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted, her voice low but filled with anger that simmered just beneath the surface. She pulled her hand back and crossed her arms, as though trying to hold herself together. Gunnar gave her a small nod, watching her closely. "Start at the beginning. What happened while we were away?" Karina let out a slow breath, her eyes dark with memories that were still raw and freshly returned to her mind. She began to speak, her voice steady but tinged with the weight of everything that had happened. "It was all lies," she started, her tone bitter. "The trader? Everything about him was a lie. He wasn't just some rogue, some neutral force lurking in the shadows. He was responsible for everything. The darkness that destroyed Nythoria. He released it. He handed me over to the Demon King." Gunnar's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing as he processed the revelation. "The Demon King?" Karina nodded. "Ultranacius Eternus. He was the one who controlled me for so long, and it was the trader who gave me to him. I saw it, everything, like the memories were being unraveled inside me all at once. He betrayed my world, my family, and me." Derren, standing off to the side with his arms crossed, gave a low whistle. "Well, that explains a lot." Ignoring Derren's remark, Gunnar's jaw tightened. "And now you're going after him." Karina's eyes flashed, the tendrils of shadow swirling faster around her again. I'm going to destroy him, Gunnar. I want to make him pay for every lie, every betrayal. I want him to answer for what he did to me, to my world. Gunnar took a deep breath, considering her words carefully. You're not wrong to want justice, but we need to be smart about this. Charging into the Shadow Realm bar, breaking the truce, that won't help us, and it won't get you what you want. I'm not waiting, she said, her voice taut with frustration. He can't hide from me. Not now. Gunnar stepped closer, lowering his voice. Listen to me. We'll get him, but we have to do it the right way. I know the power you feel right now, but you can't let it blind you to the consequences. You know what happens if you break the truce. We're not just dealing with the traitor here. The moment you break that rule, you'll have the entire Shadow Realm bar and every powerful creature within it turning on you. Derren, still lingering behind them, piped up. And trust me, you don't want to piss off that many supernatural creatures in one go. That place is a nightmare buffet of power. Karina's hands clenched into fists, her entire being radiating frustration and power that seemed barely contained. But Gunnar's words slowly broke through the storm inside her. The shadows receded further, and her shoulders dropped slightly. You're right, she finally muttered, though it seemed to pain her to admit it. We need a plan. Gunnar gave a small nod, relaxing slightly. We'll bring him to justice. You have my word, but we're not going to throw ourselves into a trap. He's slippery, and we need to be a step ahead. Her gaze softened, though the fury in her eyes still simmered. Thank you, Gunnar. I just need him to pay. For all of it. Gunnar looked at her, a rare softness in his eyes. He will. But we're going to make sure you stay in control while we do it. Derren, ever the voice of tension-breaking sarcasm, raised an eyebrow. Right. So, anyone else feel like we missed out on all the fun while we were away? Explosions, ascensions, shadowy tendrils. What's next? Do we have to fight a giant dragon or something? Karina shot him a look, but her lips twitched slightly, almost as if she were amused. No dragons, she said, but we have a traitor to catch. Gunnar turned to Derren. We have our work cut out for us, but first we need to regroup. There's still a lot we don't know. Derren shrugged, glancing between the two of them. I'm in. But seriously, can someone fill me in on what exactly happened here? I feel like I walked into the aftermath of a fireworks show. Karina sighed, some of the tension easing from her shoulders. You'll get your answers soon enough. But first, we're going after the trader. Gunnar placed a hand on Karina's shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. You're not doing this alone, Karina, not anymore. She met his eyes, a flicker of gratitude passing through her. No, not alone. For the first time since her ascension, she allowed herself to believe that with Gunnar, Derren, and the pack behind her, she had a chance, not just at vengeance, but at reclaiming the future that was stolen from her. As the courtyard began to quiet, the night settled in, and they began their next steps toward unraveling the truth and preparing for the confrontation that would define Kaelithra's future, and the fate of the trader. The weight of the revelation hung in the room like an unspoken tension, an unshakable burden pressing down on Karina's shoulders. She paced the courtyard, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, sorrow, and a cold, steely resolve that frightened her even more. Shadows curled around her feet, twisting and writhing, responding to the power she barely understood. She could feel her fingers itching to grip her katana and storm out in search of the trader, vengeance hot in her veins. But before she could make a decision, Gunnar and Derren entered the courtyard, their expressions caught somewhere between sympathy and determination. Gunnar stepped forward first, his gaze steady as he watched her. He reached out, his left hand, a fusion of man and machine, resting gently on her shoulder. She glanced down at it, seeing the intricately engraved runes Eli and Eliana had added. A reminder of his battle scars, and a testament to a long-fought war against darkness. Karina, he began, his voice calm but filled with the weight of experience. I know what it's like to want revenge. The kind that eats you up from the inside, that keeps you awake at night, planning every last detail of what you'll do when you get your hands on the person responsible. He held her gaze, and for the first time, she could see the depth of his past pain mirrored in his remaining blue eye. She opened her mouth to respond, but he raised his hand slightly, signaling her to listen. That drive, that need for vengeance, it cost me. I don't just mean the arm or the eye, he said, his voice lowering. It cost me people I cared about. People I couldn't protect because I let that anger cloud my judgment. When I took on Ultranacious, I thought I was unstoppable. I thought my anger would fuel me through any battle. He paused, letting the words sink in. Derren, leaning against the stone wall, broke in, his voice softer than usual. Yeah, and now he's got the hardware to prove it. But honestly, Karina, he's not just talking about a broken arm and eye here. He's talking about the pieces of himself that he lost because of that vengeance, the pieces he might never get back. Karina looked between the two of them, her grip loosening slightly on her katana as their words penetrated the fog of her anger. You're saying I should just walk away? Her tone was tinged with frustration, but her voice wavered as though the fierce determination was beginning to splinter. Gunnar shook his head slowly. No, I'm saying vengeance has a price. If you're going to go after him, if you're going to reclaim your realm and honor the lives that were lost, then do it with a plan, with focus. I can't tell you not to want retribution, but I can tell you this. Don't let it consume you. Derren stepped forward, placing a hand on her other shoulder, his tone unexpectedly gentle. Look, Karina. Or should I say Princess Kaelithra? He smirked, softening the tension with his usual sarcasm. You're not alone in this. You have all of us. Gunnar's right. If this is something you have to do, fine. But let us do it with you. Don't go marching in there solo like a one-woman army, or you're bound to end up right where he wants you. Karina closed her eyes, the faces of her parents, her people, her entire realm flashing through her mind. The anger was still there, a simmering ember, but the intensity of it had dimmed. She released a long, shaky breath, her hands unclenching. You're both right, she said quietly. I need to think this through. She looked up, meeting Gunnar's gaze. Teach me what you know. Help me be ready. Gunnar's expression softened and he gave a slight nod. That's what we're here for. This is bigger than revenge, Karina. This is about reclaiming what's rightfully yours. Derren gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. And hey, I'll even tone down the sarcasm. Maybe. She couldn't help the faint smile that crossed her lips. I'm holding you to that, Derren. He grinned, stepping back with a casual salute. You've got my word. Now, what's step one, fearless leader? He directed his question to Gunnar, ready to jump into action. First things first, Gunnar replied, his voice calm but resolute. We regroup. Plan. We're going to need Eli's mind and Eliana's insight. And when we're ready, then we make our move. He looked at Karina, his eye reflecting both pride and concern. This time, we do it together. With a final nod, Karina felt a flicker of hope, like the first break in a storm. She didn't have to face this alone. And as they turned to head back to the others, she knew she had a chance not just to avenge her past, but to reclaim her future. Kaelithra stood at the heart of the courtyard, the cool night air, heavy with expectation, and the glow of the full moon casting an ethereal light over the gathering. She could feel the weight of her new title, Queen of Nythoria, a reality that still felt foreign but resonated deep within her. No longer was she simply Karina, the lone survivor of a shattered realm. Now she was Kaelithra, the last of her line, destined to restore what had been lost. Around her the pack assembled in silence, each member solemn and attentive. The air buzzed with their quiet energy, their unspoken vows of loyalty to her and to each other. Ashley stood closest, her eyes sharp with both empathy and fierce determination, while Derren's expression softened as he caught Kaelithra's gaze, nodding with a reassuring smile. Their presence fortified her, but her mind was already turning to another task at hand. She turned, her gaze finding Kaelin at the edge of the courtyard. He lingered there, half in shadow, as though the light wasn't his to claim. Kaelithra moved toward him, her steps steady and purposeful. The pack parted, giving her the space she needed, and all eyes followed her as she approached him. "Kaelin," she said, her voice soft, yet carrying the weight of her new role. "There's something I need from you." He looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers with a familiar intensity. "Anything, Your Majesty." The title echoed between them, feeling strange yet deeply right. "Your armor and weapons," she continued, her tone unwavering. "It's time you retrieved them." His face tightened, and for a moment he looked away, shadows darkening his features. "I abandoned them," he admitted, the weight of his past evident in his voice. "I believed myself unworthy of wielding them after I failed you." She regarded him steadily, feeling the sorrow in his words. "Kaelin," she said, her voice softening, "the past is unchangeable, but we shape the future. You are my guardian, as you were meant to be, and those weapons were forged to defend Nythoria's rightful queen. Let them serve their purpose again." Kaelin's jaw clenched, but a new resolve began to shine in his eyes. He took a deep breath, nodding. "As you wish, my queen. I will retrieve them." He looked toward the workshop, then back at her. "And I will take them to Eli if you believe she can ready them." A small, determined smile played on Kaelithra's lips. "Eli's work will ensure you are equipped to face whatever awaits us." A chorus of supportive murmurs came from the pack as Kaelin turned, setting off with purpose. Eli, who had been observing quietly, nodded to Kaelithra with a look that said she would take care of everything. Once Kaelin departed, Kaelithra turned back to face the pack. There was an unspoken unity in their expressions, a shared bond of purpose and commitment. Ashley stepped forward, meeting Kaelithra's gaze, her lips curving in a faint but determined smile. "You've got us, Kaelithra. We're here for you, through it all." Derren, his usual sarcasm softened by sincerity, gave her a nod. "Guess you're not getting rid of us anytime soon, Your Highness." A ripple of laughter followed his words, breaking some of the tension. The others echoed their commitment in their own ways, small gestures, words of encouragement, or simply a touch to her shoulder, each offering their strength to hers. Kaelithra closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of their support wash over her. She knew now more than ever that she wasn't alone. Whatever trials lay ahead, she would face them with the unwavering loyalty of those by her side. And as they stood under the watchful gaze of the moon, it was clear to everyone present that Kaelithra's journey to reclaim Nythoria was only just beginning. As the group gathered in the courtyard, the moonlight cast an eerie glow over the debris left by Kaelithra's ascension. Scorched stones and shattered remnants from Eli's security sensors littered the ground, testament to the sheer force that had torn through the courtyard just hours before. Gunnar took in the scene with a grim expression, his eye moving over the destruction, his mind already working through the next steps. Eli knelt beside the remains of one of her sensors, carefully lifting a few charred fragments and frowning. "Well," she said thoughtfully, holding up a twisted piece of metal that sparked faintly. "At least we have data. Readings from these could help me build something more robust, even against shadow walking." Gunnar nodded approvingly. "Good. Let's see that we're ready if it happens again," he replied, crossing his arms. Despite his approval, his stance remained tense, as if still braced for any lingering threat. Derren looked over at the torn courtyard with an exhausted sigh. Look, I think we can all agree it's been one hell of a day. Why don't we pick up the pieces, literally and metaphorically, in the morning?" he suggested, trying to lighten the mood. "Maybe we could pretend the courtyard wasn't hit by a magical tornado overnight." The faintest of smiles passed over Eli's face, and even Kaelithra, still processing her recent ascension, allowed herself a brief nod of agreement. As the group murmured their assent, Gunnar straightened, his face shifting to a look of seriousness. "I want everyone in for a meeting first thing tomorrow. We'll assess what we've got, make a plan, and patch up whatever we need to. Get some rest, people. We're only beginning to understand what's ahead." With that, the pack members began to disperse, each casting one last look over the courtyard before heading to their quarters, the weight of the day's events settling heavily on their shoulders. Kaelithra lingered a moment longer, looking around the courtyard, her courtyard now, with a sense of both pride and trepidation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and she would face them with her pack by her side. The morning sun cast soft rays over the remnants of the previous day's chaos as the pack gathered in the meeting room. They filed in one by one, exchanging nods and murmurs, but each expression was serious, bearing the weight of all they'd witnessed. Kaelithra entered alongside Shade, who wore a full suit of ancient Nythorian armour, the crest of her family, the unmistakable symbol of the royal house of Nythoria, was etched proudly on the chest plate, its silver lines catching the morning light. At the sight of it, a memory surged in Kaelithra's mind, unbidden and intense. She saw herself as a young girl, watching the same crest on her parents' armour, a symbol of safety and strength. Her fingers twitched instinctively toward the emblem as the memory faded, and she returned to the present. Gunnar cleared his throat from the head of the table, calling everyone to attention. Once the room settled, he scanned the faces around him, his gaze lingering on each member before he spoke. "We've got new information coming in from all angles, and it's time to pull it all together. I want everyone who's seen the inside of the Shadow Realm bar to brief the team. We're not missing anything this time." Derren leaned back, crossing his arms, and began. "All right, the Shadow Realm bar, where all things shady converge. I've seen humans and supernaturals side by side in there, but there's one main rule. Humans can't get past that door into the actual Shadow Realm without an invitation or powers. Believe me, I tried, and ended up in the alley out back." Everyone chuckled, and Derren smirked. "The alley also seems to be a little bit of a hotspot for deals of questionable legality. Last time I was thrown out, I ran into a couple of dealers. They got aggressive until someone, one big scary brute, tossed them around like rag dolls and left me with this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the vial of supernatural drug. "From what Eli tells me, it gives supernaturals a high, but is deadly to humans." Eli, who had been examining her notes, nodded. "Yes, that vial has a mix of compounds that affect the mind in a way I haven't seen before. I've been analysing it. Deadly to humans, yes, but it seems to be a highly addictive form of essence to supernaturals. The troubling part is that we've got evidence this drug is coming from the Shadow Realm bar, possibly through traders with deep connections." Shade shifted in his seat, his face grim under the shadow of his helm. The Shadow Realm bar is a hub for more than just that. It's also the place where traders with powerful artifacts gather. The one who betrayed Kaelithra and me all those years ago, the trader responsible for so much pain, is likely still operating through its doors. That place, for many like me, was a way to hide and make deals unseen. Kaelithra glanced at Shade, her gaze hardening. He hid, but not out of sight. He's still in there, manipulating people and situations to his advantage, and he'll do whatever it takes to stay in power. Gunnar nodded, which is why we need to understand exactly how he's staying hidden. Eli? Eli looked up, gathering her notes. The bar's security is, let's say, unique. There's a truce inside the bar enforced by the staff and, by what I can tell, some type of magical system in place. Weapons are handed over at the door, and it seems to be enchanted with something powerful enough to detect abilities like Shade's shadow walking or Kaelithra's powers. However, Shade managed to slip past security somehow during his last entry. Shade's jaw tightened. I used skills I've spent decades honing, but even so, I suspect there's someone on the inside allowing certain individuals more freedom than others. Gunnar tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. So, we've got traders dealing illicit goods and artifacts, a mysterious security system with a possible insider giving certain people a pass, and a supernatural narcotic that's making its way to humans. Anything else? Kaelithra took a deep breath. The atmosphere of that place, it feels like it's hiding something deeper, something that goes beyond just trading. It's as though the very walls are soaked in secrets. Every glance, every conversation feels like part of a game we're not meant to see the end of. And if our trader is there, he's likely involved in much more than we've uncovered. Derren nodded. It's a web, and every thread leads somewhere we don't have eyes yet. But one thing's for sure, he's got enough influence in there to keep himself protected. Going in there with brute force won't work. Gunnar met each of their gazes, his face thoughtful. Good work. We'll keep digging, and we'll find our way through this web, one strand at a time. For now, we proceed carefully. And Eli, I want those security upgrades on the workshop ready as soon as possible. Eli smirked. I'm already 3 steps ahead of you. Shade speaks, his voice steady but with a tone of subdued remorse. The Shadow Realm Bar has always been a place of uneasy alliances. It respects certain boundaries, but it's also a gathering place for dangerous players. It's under the radar because those who use it want it that way. If we're going to act against anyone there, we need to do it carefully. There are powers we don't fully understand, alliances that go deep. Gunnar leans forward. This isn't just about you, Kaelithra. It's about the pack, our territory, and every realm involved. Tomorrow we start working on containment and a strategy. This threat has been allowed to grow unchecked for too long. The meeting concludes with a silent understanding among the team. The pack was a whirlwind of activity as the sun rose higher, casting light over the scattered remnants of Kaelithra's recent ascension. Dust and debris filled the courtyard, and everyone had a role. Derren was hauling away stones, still muttering under his breath about the intensity of the previous night, while Shade quietly assessed the perimeter with his customary caution. Eli, however, was fully focused on reinstalling her security sensors along the boundary, moving with swift, efficient purpose as she adjusted each one to integrate her new modifications. With the recovered data from her damaged equipment, she'd made several key adjustments. She tinkered with each sensor, adding an extra layer of sensitivity calibrated to detect even the faintest shadow movement, a system she hoped would alert them to any attempt at shadow walking within the compound. Nearby, Kaelithra watched as her pack family worked together, and a strange, steady warmth settled in her chest. The pack. Her pack now, in a way, even if Gunnar and Clara were its true alphas. She belonged here, in a way she hadn't understood until this moment, watching everyone labour shoulder to shoulder. She noticed Gunnar hauling away a particularly large pile of debris and took a step forward, clearing her throat to catch his attention. "Gunnar," she said, waiting until he straightened, dusting off his hands. There was an intensity in her gaze, tempered but determined. "I want you to come with me to the Shadow Realm Bar." He blinked, assessing her silently for a beat before responding. "That's a bold move, Kaelithra." He used her true name, his tone carrying both respect and a reminder of the role she now bore. "The bar isn't just any place. You know as well as I do that every eye will be on you. You ready for that?" A faint flicker of determination sparked in her eyes. "They need to know I'm here, that I'm stepping into my place, and I need to see how they react. If the trader's hiding there, he'll know exactly who he's dealing with. It's as much for them as it is for me." Gunnar considered her words, his gaze steady. After a moment, he nodded. "All right, we'll go together. Just know, they'll test you. That crowd's more than unpredictable, and they don't make it easy for anyone new, especially a queen who's set on claiming her throne. Her lips curved into a faint smile. If there's anything I've learned from you, it's that a leader has to step forward alone. But that doesn't mean they can't bring backup. Good answer, he said, and there was a hint of pride in his voice. As they prepared to leave, Eli approached, wiping her hands free of the dust from her censer work, a half-smile lighting her face. Are we plotting something interesting here? She asked, crossing her arms with a mix of curiosity and caution. Kaelithra exchanged a glance with Gunnar. We're heading to the Shadow Realm bar, she explained. Time to make my presence known. Eli's eyebrow arched. The Shadow Realm bar, huh? She paused, studying Kaelithra with a look that carried both pride and concern. That place doesn't exactly roll out the welcome mat for royalty, even if it's a supernatural one. Remember, Kaelithra, the truce is in effect there, but rules can be, let's just say, malleable. Gunnar nodded, his expression mirroring Eli's caution. She's right. That crowd has a way of testing boundaries, especially if they sense someone new. Noted. Kaelithra's voice was resolute, but there was a flicker of gratitude in her eyes as she glanced between Eli and Gunnar. Thanks for the heads up. I'll stay sharp. A faint grin crossed Eli's face. Just keep your eyes open. The bar has a habit of revealing things to people who pay attention, and if you see anything unusual, let me know. I get the feeling there's more going on there than any of us realize. Kaelithra nodded, appreciating the cautionary words from her friend and advisor. I will, Eli. And thank you. With a final exchange of nods, Kaelithra and Gunnar prepared themselves, knowing that every step taken toward the Shadow Realm bar was a step closer to confronting a past shadowed by secrets. The bar, with its dangerous allure and rules steeped in ancient lore, held answers and risks alike. The rest of the pack watched them depart, and Eli stood back, fingers lightly grazing the equipment on her belt, her eyes filled with a mix of worry and hope as they stepped into the unknown together. The hum of the engine echoed through the garage, filling the space with a low, vibrating thrum that set the tone for what was bound to be an intense journey. Gunnar and Kaelithra stepped into the dimly lit room, finding Derren and Shade already waiting. The Hummer's headlights were on, casting long shadows that danced across the walls, adding a theatrical edge to the scene. Shade stood near the driver's side, arms crossed, his gaze steady and unwavering as Kaelithra and Gunnar approached. There was a seriousness to his posture, a quiet determination that only grew as he spoke. I'm coming with you, he announced, his tone leaving no room for debate. His gaze fell upon Kaelithra, a glimmer of steadfast loyalty in his dark eyes. My queen, wherever you go, I will be by your side. I won't take no for an answer. Kaelithra paused, a mix of amusement and exasperation crossing her face. Shade's loyalty was fierce, and while she valued it deeply, she also knew he wouldn't be easily swayed from this decision. Gunnar, standing beside her, gave a slight nod, his expression unreadable. I figured you'd say that, he remarked, knowing Shade well enough to expect his unwavering dedication. On the passenger side, Derren leaned back against the Hummer, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Well, if the Queen's royal bodyguard insists on tagging along, then I guess I'd better come too, he quipped, his tone dripping with playful sarcasm. He tilted his head toward Gunnar, flashing him a teasing grin. Can't have the boss man heading out without a bit of moral support, can we? Gunnar shot him a dry look, one eyebrow lifting as if to say, Really? Derren shrugged, unfazed. Besides, who else is going to keep you all in line if things go south? He grinned wider, clearly enjoying himself. Kaelithra let out a sigh, casting a glance at Gunnar before looking back at Shade and Derren. Fine. If you're both that insistent, then let's just get going. But remember, she added, her voice firm as she fixed her gaze on each of them in turn, this isn't a casual visit. I need answers, and this time we're making our presence known." Shade gave a nod of respect, his hand on his weapon's hilt, as he silently pledged his allegiance once more. Derren, however, merely rolled his eyes with a playful salute. "Aye, your majesty. Lead the way, and I'll try to keep my sarcasm in check, at least until we get there." Gunnar snorted, shaking his head as he climbed into the Hummer. "Let's get this show on the road, then." With everyone settled in, Shade in the driver's seat and Kaelithra beside him, the Hummer roared to life, carrying them through the compound gates and into the city streets. The journey ahead was laced with tension and anticipation, each of them bracing for the mysteries that awaited in the depths of the Shadow Realm bar. As they drove, Kaelithra cast a thoughtful look out the window, the city's lights flashing by, her mind sharpening with purpose. Beside her, Gunnar leaned back, his gaze focused and intense, ready for whatever lay ahead. And behind them, Derren settled in, his smirk fading as he prepared himself, despite the teasing, for the unknown dangers they were about to face. The bar was no place for the faint of heart, and tonight it would see the Queen of Nythoria and her loyal protectors step through its doors, a reckoning waiting on the other side. Arrival at the Shadow Realm bar. From the outside, the bar looked like any other seedy joint, peeling paint, grimy windows, and a flickering neon sign that barely lit the street. But stepping inside was like entering a different world. Shadows flickered unnaturally in the corners, and an undercurrent of energy pulsed beneath the surface. The crew moved smoothly past the human patrons in the front. Gunnar, Karina, and Shade approached the back door with determined strides, the air thickening with anticipation. As they stepped through into the Shadow Realm, the towering beast of a bouncer looked at them, his eyes widening at the sight of Gunnar. He raised a shaking hand, his voice gravelly. "Truce." Shade handed over his sword, and Karina reluctantly surrendered her katana after a moment's hesitation. But when the bouncer looked to Gunnar, the veteran only shook his head. "Unarmed," he said, though the concealed dagger in his cybernetic arm remained silently poised. Meanwhile, Derren found himself outside again, blinking in confusion. What the hell? He turned back only to find Rose standing behind him, her arms crossed and a smirk curling her lips. "You didn't get invited, Earthborn," she purred. "Guess you need a little help." She held out her arm, her eyebrow quirking up as if daring him. He hesitated. "I'm not going to regret this, am I?" "Oh, absolutely," she replied, leaning in close. "But it's going to be fun." Grumbling under his breath, Derren took her arm. "All right, let's get this over with." Rose's grin widened. "Oh, I knew you'd come around." As they passed the bouncer, Rose gave him a playful pat on the shoulder, leaning in to kiss his cheek. "See you, big guy." Derren watched the interaction, shaking his head. She really knows how to work a room. The bouncer grunted. "Trouble," he muttered as they walked past. "Yeah, tell me about it," Derren said, adjusting his grip on his shotgun. Inside the Shadow Realm. Inside, the trio moved smoothly through the dimly lit space, weaving between tables filled with supernatural patrons. The beings around them shifted uncomfortably, giving Gunnar and his crew a wide berth. The air crackled with tension as murmurs filled the room. The trader spotted them from across the bar. His eyes widened and he quickly turned, trying to slip away. But Karina, now fully in command of her abilities, raised her hand. The shadows around the trader twisted and bound his legs, freezing him in place. He squirmed, panic flickering across his face. Meanwhile, Derren and Rose had caught up. "What did I miss?" Derren asked, taking in the scene with a grin. "Oh, just a little reunion," Rose replied, eyes glinting with amusement as she leaned back against the bar, clearly enjoying the spectacle. "You should have brought popcorn," Derren added, his voice teasing. "This is getting good." Karina stepped forward, her voice low and commanding. "Going somewhere, trader?" The trader stammered, his face pale as he realized he was trapped. I didn't." Gunnar approached, his expression hard as stone. Time to answer for your crimes. Derren couldn't help but chime in. You know, for a guy named Trader, you sure are bad at picking sides. Rose, lingering behind, sighed dramatically. This is the best entertainment I've had all week. As the trio closed in on the trader, tension peaked. Karina's grip on the shadows tightened, the darkness coiling around the trader like serpents. There was no escape for him this time. The chapter ends with the group advancing and the trader's eyes darting around desperately. Nowhere to run, no one to save him. "You're not going anywhere," she said, her voice steady and deadly. Her grip on the shadows forced him to remain still, his breaths shallow as he stared at her wide-eyed. The crowd held their breath, inching back even further, some visibly concerned about the direction this was heading. An older, refined man in a tailored vest and neatly combed hair emerged from a side door and approached with a confident stride, his face set in an easy smile. "Ah, my friends," he began smoothly, looking as calm as if he were introducing himself to old colleagues. "Welcome, welcome to our humble establishment. My name is Silas, the bar manager." He gave them all a small bow, pausing just enough for effect. "While we welcome everyone, I'd remind you all about the truce." He offered them a dazzling smile that could have made even Derren jealous. "Now surely we can resolve this misunderstanding without breaching the peace. Trader here." He gestured casually toward the trembling man caught in Kaelithra's shadow. "Maybe misguided, but he is a patron nonetheless." Kaelithra's smile was dark, a promise of what was to come. "Then perhaps your patron should have considered the truce when he betrayed his princess and sold her to a demon king." Silas's smile didn't falter, but his gaze turned calculating, glancing around as if assessing the effect this revelation had on the other patrons. Murmurs erupted, recognition dawning in their eyes as they looked from Kaelithra to the trader, caught and humiliated in his own haven. Silas tilted his head in acknowledgement, his smile remaining firmly in place. "Well," he said, voice still smooth but with a hint of something darker underneath, "it appears we're in need of some reconciliation. I assume, Princess Kaelithra, you're here to collect debts." She stepped forward, her control over the shadows tightening. "I'm here for justice, Silas," she replied. The weight of her command rolled across the room. The trader whimpered, his face pale as he pleaded, "Please, Kaelithra, Princess, have mercy. I was protecting the realm. It wasn't betrayal, it was survival." "Survival?" she echoed with a cold laugh. "Survival was abandoning your people? Selling a child to a demon king? No. Today you pay for what you did." The tension snapped as three massive bouncers lumbered toward them, flanking Silas, but they kept a respectful distance, their expressions wary. They too were aware of the pack's reputation. Silas held up his hand, signaling them to wait. "Princess, if I may offer a suggestion," he ventured carefully. "Taking powers here could upset the delicate balance of this establishment." His gaze shifted to Gunnar, measuring him. "And we both know the repercussions of upsetting the status quo." Gunnar held Silas's gaze, a hint of a smile on his face. "That's a problem for another day, isn't it?" he replied, cool and unwavering. "She has a right to justice." Silas's jaw tightened briefly before he regained his composure, looking almost amused. "Of course, but only within the bounds of the truce. If she wishes to remove him from the premises, by all means. But beyond that—" His voice trailed off, a warning clear in his tone. Kaelithra gave him a smile that was almost kind. Almost. "Oh, I don't need to break the truce for this." She stepped closer to the trader, her fingers lifting, weaving dark tendrils of shadow around him. His eyes went wide, pleading as he realized her intent. "No, please," he whispered, but there was no escaping. She whispered an incantation, her powers surging through the shadows, binding him. With a subtle twist of her fingers, she stripped him of his power, siphoning the essence back into her. He gasped, his strength visibly draining as he slumped forward, a shadow of his former self. The crowd shifted, murmuring in awe and fear. Kaelithra's expression softened, a cold satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. Now, you're nothing more than the coward you are. The trader whimpered, broken and powerless. Silas, watching with a mix of wariness and admiration, finally turned to the remaining patrons. "Around on the house," he called, the crowd cheering faintly, though they kept their distance from Kaelithra. Just as Kaelithra was about to turn away, Shade stepped forward. His voice rang out, calm and steady, with a touch of regret. "The name you hide behind, trader, isn't yours. You are Andalin, a betrayer of Nythoria." The trader, Andalin, stared in horror, his humiliation complete. With his powers stripped and his name revealed, he had no defences left, no shadow to hide behind. Silas inclined his head toward Kaelithra and the pack, clearly impressed. "I do hope this settles things, for now. After all, I wouldn't want any further disturbances to our peaceful little haven." Kaelithra gave him a cold nod. "Consider it settled." Her voice cut through the murmur of patrons, silencing them. She turned, her steps decisive as she led the way out, leaving Andalin to his disgrace, powerless in the very place he once sought refuge. Behind her, Rose smirked, calling after them with a laugh. "That was better than any fight I've seen in ages." Derren gave her a nod, throwing in his own grin. "Guess you'll just have to wait for the encore," he quipped, turning to follow the rest of the pack. The tension in the Shadow Realm bar was palpable, an electric current of curiosity and apprehension threading through the crowd. Kaelithra, flanked by Gunnar, Shade, and Derren, stood at the centre, each of them exuding a distinct energy that commanded attention. The bar's usual noise had died down, replaced by a tense silence, as beings from both human and supernatural realms observed them with cautious awe. As they moved toward the exit, Silas, the bar manager, appeared at Kaelithra's side, his usual smooth charm present, but with an edge of restraint. He inclined his head respectfully, his voice dripping with politeness. "Princess Kaelithra," Silas began, "it was a pleasure to witness such a powerful display." Kaelithra's eyes narrowed, and she paused, turning to face him fully. Her voice was calm but edged with authority. "Silas, I am no longer simply princess. I am Queen Kaelithra of Nythoria. Make sure you remember that." A flicker of realization passed through Silas's eyes, and he offered a deeper bow, the flicker of a smirk appearing briefly on his face before he schooled his expression. "My apologies, Your Majesty," he corrected smoothly, with a quick deferential nod. "The Shadow Realm bar will remember." Shade looked on, his loyalty to Kaelithra shining in his gaze, solidified now more than ever. For so long he had hidden his identity in this bar, evaded his past, but now he stood proudly by his queen's side, bearing her family's crest with renewed honour. Derren leaned over to Gunnar, his usual irreverent humour bubbling to the surface. "Think she's made herself clear enough, or do we need to leave them a signed notice?" Gunnar chuckled, though his eyes remained watchful. "I think the message has been well received, Derren." As they made their way through the parted crowd, the patrons eyed them with new wariness and respect. Silas stepped aside, hands clasped behind his back, observing their exit with a glint of intrigue in his eyes. Outside, the chill night air was a welcome contrast to the charged atmosphere they'd left behind. Kaelithra let out a steadying breath, her grip still tight on the katana, the cool weight a grounding presence in her hand. Derren, never one to let silence reign, glanced over with a sly grin. "Well, that was a lovely evening out. Think we'll get invited back?" Kaelithra's lips twitched in a smirk. "Only if they have a short memory." Gunnar placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Let them watch and remember, Kaelithra. They'll come to understand who you are now, and that they should respect it." Kaelithra looked at each of her pack members in turn, a surge of pride and gratitude swelling within her. They weren't just her allies. They were her strength, her unbreakable bond to both Earth and Nythoria. As they walked away from the bar, their figures melted into the night, and the Shadow Realm bar was left with the undeniable knowledge that they had witnessed the rise of Nythoria's queen, a force of power, vengeance, and protection.
All right, you've made it this far. That means either you like what you're seeing, or you're lost. Either way, no harm in sticking around, right? Go on, hit that subscribe button, join the team, and while you're at it, hit like, because, let's be honest, you're already invested. And the bell? That's for you if you don't want to miss any of the action. You wouldn't want me to come find you. See you soon, and remember, once you're in, you're family.